Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sure Look, Sure Listen, the podcast that takes a pop at culture.
Oh, very exciting, Benjamin. This is almost exciting as seeing everyone's Spotify Wrapped, including the number of people who posted on social media for whom we were number one. We've done it. We've won social media, Ben.
I don't think anybody did that, did they?
They did. They're just not tagging you because your social media presence is pretty poor. I've got a few, though. It's pretty good. Anyway, we don't have time to analyse Ben's social media. Oh, look, he's got COVID. We don't have time to analyse Ben's social media presence because we've loads of stuff to look at this week, including I've finally seen Smile 2. Benjamin, on the other hand, devoted his time to watching the first installment in the new DCU, the animated televisual series Creature Commandos. He's also seen episodes 1 and 2 of Black Doves, and I don't even know what that is. And on top of all of that, we have a new trailer for the new Apple TV movie starring Anya Taylor-Joy and that fella from out of Drum That Faster Boy, whatever his name is, the Gorge.
Miles Teller, Michael, Miles Teller.
Miles
Sure,
Teller,
listen.
that's who he is.
Sure, listen, we don't have time for more delightful installments of Mick's favourite series. I can't remember, so I'm going to make up something witty, like Drum That Faster Boy.
Drum That Faster Boy.
So, listen, Michael, listen. If that wasn't enough, and it's not to really keep a weekly pop culture podcast afloat.
Not if we want to be on top of people's Spotify Wrapped, Ben.
That's your dream, Michael, not my dream. That's your dream.
Oh, okay.
I just want to be at the top of my father's heart. That's what I want. But he doesn't even listen to this podcast. Son of a
No,
gun.
he doesn't. He's
Jerry,
militantly against listening to this podcast. He won't even make eye contact with me when I see him.
He calls it tomfoolery, Michael. He
Yeah.
just turns around to me and he says, do you know, Michael, sorry, we're talking about cursed objects, ladies and gentlemen. Cursed objects is what we're talking about. We're going to be taking a look at that most delightful of tropes, something that tickles young Michael's pickle quite a bit. He loves a cursed object. Nom, 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 says Michael. Curse me, daddy, is what he says.
So Benjamin, this episode of Cursed Objects was inspired by the fact that you've got a new pair of spectacles.
I've got a brand new pair of spectacles.
And I'm going to put them up my bum. Benjamin.
Yeah. Yes.
What's a cursed object anyway?
Michael, it's a narrative little device, usually, Michael. It's an object that has been imbued with some form of malice. That object. It's used kind of well in some things and kind of awfully in others, Michael. They lead to... Look, it's an object, usually an everyday object, that has been imbued with sinister intent.
Oh.
Yeah. You can do it in a very hacky way, Michael. For example, a podcast microphone that makes you divulge your deepest, darkest secrets.
Uh-oh.
On every episode.
I don't have a filter, Ben. What can I do?
I know.
It's not the mic's fault.
Yeah, your microphone isn't cursed at all, Michael. You're just an oversharer.
Yeah, I just have no filter.
Yeah, that's it.
No hemorrhoids are at me today, I tell you what.
It can be very hacky, Michael, or it can be something that has, it can be when this bell rings, you're going to die. And that's fine. Like, grand. All right, fair enough. Cursed violin. When everybody hears it, they die of melancholy. All right, Edgar Allan Poe, take a fucking seat. You're grand.
Fucking take it down a notch. Take it down about 30%.
But there are other kind of more subtle or nuanced ways that certain objects can curse people. For example, Michael, you might have a children's book that allows a malevolent entity to invite them inside the book and then eats them.
Oh. Is that cursed, or is that just an evil entity? Benjamin,
No,
what's the difference?
Children's book.
What's the difference between a cursed object and
Trademark.
a possessed object? Or, for our
Trademark.
purposes, are they the same thing?
I think probably for our purposes today, Michael, almost the same thing. However, we could draw a distinction, Michael.
Yes.
in that a cursed object has absorbed a malicious energy and does not necessarily wish to inflict its effect on other people. It just happens to do that. Yeah, because it's just an object. So perhaps the line that must be drawn, Michael, is that of intent.
Oh, very interesting. Because a very interesting question around this, around whether an object is cursed or itself malevolent due to the accumulation of some sort of evil or just direct presence, is in the variety of cursed or haunted or possessed dolls. It's one of the favourite genres of things to get possessed.
Oh, look at that creepy doll. I bet there's someone riding it around.
Okay. That's
no, like a spectral entity.
Thing to say about women, Ben.
Piloting the doll.
So anyway, what I'm talking about, of course, is what I like to call the real Annabelle, the movie Annabelle, the Chucky spectrum.
Okay, so how are we going to... What is our spectrum then, Michael? What are we
Chucky,
deciding on here?
So Chucky is a doll. He's a good guy doll. And he gets inhabited by the soul spirit of a murderer. Like, possessed is probably the wrong word, but the spirit of a psychopath possesses this doll. And the simple fact of being around Chucky or touching Chucky doesn't get you killed. Chucky malevolently comes to life and stabs you to death.
Yes, he's a big old evil boy.
Yeah, exactly. Then, a step down from that, you've got your Annabelles. And let's talk about the movie Annabelle. In the movie version of Annabelle, she's kind of somewhere in between. Where... Go on.
I've always found her to be irritating in her cursed object form, because sometimes Annabelle is a spectral presence, and other times it's a woman pilot. Unless I'm mixing them up. Am I mixing up my evil ventriloquist things?
No, this is what I mean. This is kind of this is the point. Is the doll going to strangle you, or is having the doll in your house going to make evil shit happen?
Yeah, it's quite interesting in that way. Like, one of the one that really grey areas this for me, Michael, is Jumanji, the board game.
Oh, now, hold on. Before you... Because I'm not finished talking about Annabelle.
All right, you're not finished talking about Annabelle. Settle down, Michael.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not going to settle down. This is too exciting for me. This is
we
one
need
of my
a speaker
topics.
of the house.
Order! Order!
He's not doing much. That fella was on a season.
I will not have this sort of tomfoolery in my house.
Let's get him.
We'll get him in for the podcast. So, Ben, where I was going is... The real-life cursed object, allegedly, that is Annabelle, owned by noted shysters Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Shitebags.
Absolute shitebags. But the real-life Annabelle was not a creaky, possessed, antique porcelain doll that was sneaking about your house, ready to give you the old jock bay. The original Annabelle, or the real Annabelle, in very big air quotes, was a Raggedy Ann doll that a girl had, and unfortunate things happened when it was around.
Yeah.
So the Warrens contained it within some sort of ectoplasmic containment unit, which looked a lot like a cheap display box in a crap museum.
Yeah.
So... I think that version of Annabelle is the most true to the cursed object that we're talking about today. The thing itself is not inherently it is inherently evil, but it doesn't have what's the word I'm looking for? The thing you're always saying we should give to women, agency.
Oh.
It doesn't have agency. It just causes the malevolence around it.
Now, hang on. Hold on. We can't just let that rampant misogyny slide on by, Michael. Jesus Christ.
You're the one who said it, not
hell.
me. So, Ben,
I didn't say it.
This episode is brought to us by the upcoming Stephen King film, The Monkey, right?
Yeah, pretty much, Michael. I mean, so, again, the monkey is interesting because the monkey is a little malice machine, and when it bangs the drums, you go all murder happy and kind of have at, you know.
But is the monkey doing that on purpose, or is that a byproduct of the monkey doing it?
Yeah, see, that's what's very hard to distinguish, Michael, between because this is done sometimes very well in films and sometimes very heavily handed in films. For example, as I was saying earlier, before I was rudely cut down because of our lack of a Speaker of the House, Michael.
Order! Order!
Jumanji is a bit of a classic example of this, in that Jumanji, to quote a joke from Family Guy many, many years ago, Michael, insists on itself.
Go on.
It must be played in order for the horrific things it brings about to be reversed. It insists that people complete the game. And will do many, many things to make it difficult for the player to complete the game because it wants its chaos to remain for as long as possible.
Interesting. I thought you were going to suggest that it insists on itself in the kind of classic cursed object sense of it will make itself be found.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you could throw it in the bin and you'd wake up the next morning and it would be back on your bedside table. Or you could hit it with an axe and say, "And my axe," but then your axe would break.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you might drop the cursed object in a river and it would be washed out to sea and then get stuck on the fin of a tuna, and that tuna would be caught by fishermen who would then chop the tuna up and can the tuna, and then the cursed object would end up in your fridge because it wants to be found. It insists upon itself being found.
It insists upon itself, Michael. And what's interesting about that is that was the major plot of two huge 90s movies, Jumanji and The Mask. They were two big examples of that.
Yeah, The Mask is a very good one.
The Mask is a great example because right at the end of that, Michael, young Jeremiah Carey, or Jim to his mates, he chucks it out to sea. Stanley, is it Ipkiss? Stanley Ipkiss,
yes.
Chucks it out to sea, and his little dog goes in and gets it. He's like, "No, I'm not wasting this. In I go." And he has a little splash around. He pulls it back in because he's a good boy.
Yeah.
And he's fetching like
boy,
he's supposed to. But that keeps happening. And then it happens in Jumanji as well, Michael. It goes around. And then if you watch the terrible offshoot movie of that, Michael, starring The Rock, Jack Black, Karen Gillan, and who is the fourth person in that? Oh, Kevin Hart.
Little friend.
Yeah, Kevin Hart, otherwise known as The Rock's little friend. Pebble. He in that movie, Michael, it changes forms to keep up with the times. So in the original 90s, it's bloody a board game. But then in the jaded late 2000s, Michael, it's a bloody video game because these cynical kids won't touch anything that isn't a retro video game classic.
Yeah. The thing about Jumanji, though, is it evil?
This remains to be seen. Is the mask evil, Michael? In the comics, heck yes.
Absolutely.
It's a pandemonium psychosis device in the comics, Michael, that it was based on. But in the movie, it's a little bit of madcap fun, Michael. In fact, it's wielded based on the user's kind of nature. So when old Stanley Ipkiss sticks it on, Michael, he's pretty much a Looney Tune come to life. But when the bloody mob boss, who is a bit handsy with Cameron Diaz quite a bit, puts it on, he's just a murdering, malevolent psychopath. It's very interesting in that regard.
To be fair, though, Jim Carrey's pretty handsy with her too. Let's be honest. It was the
everyone
90s.
was
That was
handsy.
before women had agency.
Okay. Yeah.
In films, I mean.
In films, you mean. So, there are some other examples, like you said, where the object will kind of insist on being seen or insist on catching somebody's eye. I'm trying to think of examples now, and Michael, wouldn't you know it's escaped me? Wouldn't you know it's escaped me?
Maybe it'll come back when you least expect it. Well, the obvious one, and the legendarily classic one, is the One Ring itself. The Ring of Power.
Yeah, now there's an object.
You can't really get rid of the Ring of Power, Ben. You might try and throw it in a river, but it'll show up thousands of years later and kill your descendants.
And kill your dad.
It'll get you killed. It'll kill your dad.
It's killing everybody. The One Ring is killing
Yeah, it's
everybody.
killing everyone's dads. Yeah. Sauron originally created it, I believe, because his dad wouldn't listen to his podcast.
Yeah, and he
got
was
very
like, all right,
upset.
Dad, well, here's a ring. No hard feelings.
Yeah.
Stick that on you there.
Yeah. Stick that
on you there.
So, Ben, that probably means you could take any cursed object and just throw it into the crack of doom, and that would sort it out.
Yeah, so that's the secret, ladies and gentlemen, to cursed objects. You gotta pick them up, and you gotta chuck them in whatever. It has
to be the crack of
volcano.
Doom.
It's the crack of doom.
Yeah, it's not just any volcano, Ben. It has to be the fires of Mount Doom. Is that right?
Mount Doom. Yeah, it's Mount Doom.
Is it?
Mount Doom.
It feels
notably
a bit trite saying it out loud.
Yeah, notably out of place with the rest of the naming conventions in Middle
Yeah.
Earth. But yeah, no, it's Mount Doom.
Oh. It's kind of basic.
Quite simple stuff, really, in the end. But like, we've got a few different things, Michael. Now, it is the realm of fiction, obviously, but there are a few different things that are claimed to be cursed objects in real life. One notably being Annabelle, that you talked about a little bit earlier. But I found I found a bizarre one this week, Michael, called The Crying Boy. And The Crying Boy is by an Italian painter called Giovanni Bragolin. I think if you do it right.
Help with the pronunciation.
And you see loads of versions of this. It's just a little fella looking at the painter and he's having a little cry and you see a little tear coming down his cheek. But apparently it's pure cursed, Michael. In 1985, a massive story broke out in The Sun, you know, the British tabloid paper. Notably reputable, Michael.
Yeah.
Notably
very
reputable.
reputable.
Yeah, and apparently an Essex firefighter claimed that he had a bunch of undamaged copies that he found in the burned ruins of a house, Michael.
I wish I could do an Essex accent so I could say.
I
found these in bloody house, did I?
In it. And it became believed that the little painting would cause fires, Michael, because he found numerous copies of this paper surviving house fires, claimed this Essex firefighter, across different houses and different fires. Now, one might, Michael, applying the scientific method, say that obviously something either in the paper or the treatment of the paper maybe caused it to be a bit flame retardant. But no, it's a curse. The little crying boy.
Or, if you wanted to be even more scientific about it, maybe that's just not true. Maybe he just made that up. Maybe that's just a big story that he's telling. A common or garden lie.
A common or garden lie, if you will. But yeah, there's loads of them, Michael. And one of our favourite things about this, Michael, is it features in some of our favourite internet-created lore dumps that we love so much. Yeah, the likes of the SCPs, the Secure, the Contain, the Protects, and the likes of my new obsession, podcast-wise, Michael, the Magnus Archives.
Tell me about this. What are you talking about? What's this library?
So the Magnus Archives, Michael, is a phenomenal bit of horror fiction. It's a weekly horror podcast, and the premise is very, very simple. The head archivist of the Magnus Archive is a young man called Jonathan Sims, and he is he's forced by his job, the convention of his job as an archivist, to read out and document statements that were written and given in by members of the British public about strange occurrences that they had. Now, he knows when something is a genuine paranormal experience or when it's a bit of a hoax based on whether or not digital technology can record it. So, if it's a load of malarkey, Michael, you could probably do it this way. You could probably record it like we're talking now across a digital platform and encode it as an MP3. But if it's a little bit of hokey pokey, a little bit of hocus pocus, a little bit of here, that's something going on there. It's a little bit of that, Michael. It'll only work on old magnetic tape. It won't be recorded in any other form. It will distort or glitch the electronics. And so Jonathan Sims has been going through these and discovering different ones, Michael. And as he records them, each one is a story in his narration, and he's documenting it down. And it's one of the best examples, Michael, I think I've ever come across of a slow build, world building piece of fiction. It is phenomenal.
And are all of the stories about cursed bits of yolks?
Not always cursed bits of yolks. It could be cursed encounters or strange back rooms, for example, Michael, or something like this that a member of the British public has encountered. But eventually, themes begin to emerge within the different ones that we come about, and there's kind of recurring ideas, some of meat. There's an obsession with meat with some people. And then there's the mention of objects like cursed books, and they all seem to come from the same library, Michael. They're all met with a seal on the library, and very often when these people talk about it, they reveal that when they opened the front cover, they found an ex libris, Michael, a little "To Whom It Belongs" tab, which said "From the library of Jürgen Leitner."
Oh, not Ballyroan Community School.
Not Ballyroan Community School, as you might think, Michael.
That's what that's what I thought, to be honest.
And in this particular world, Michael, the heel and the reel of the jig, I don't want to spoil too much for anyone that might be interested in going on to check out the Magnus Archives, but there's a little bit to do. There's a few cosmic entities out there. There's a few different things happening. But the books, Michael, are cursed. And different books reveal themselves throughout tales. And then we start to realize as listeners, we go, oh, that's a Leitner. That's a Jürgen Leitner. It's not mentioned in the thing, but I bet it's a Jürgen Leitner. And these are fabulous things, Michael. Some of them are just haunting in what they do. So one of the books is an unusual tome that is thought to be from the 1800s, bound in calf leather, Michael, and it's called Ex Altiora. That's the name of the book.
Right, even higher than it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a Virgil-style poem written in Latin concerning a huge creature approaching a town. And the town is in a massive panic, and they constantly try to come up with new ways to defeat this creature as it approaches the town. And every time they come up with something, they throw rocks at it, it doesn't work. They create arrows, they fire them off, it doesn't work. And it's constantly getting closer and closer and closer. And it's phenomenal, Michael. And it turns out that book creates a sense of vertigo within the reader. And then if you finish the book, the reader finds themselves dropped from a tremendous height and they usually die.
Oh, that's why I've never finished a book.
That is why Mike Leonard, Michael Leonard, if you will, doesn't read books.
Mike Leonard is my much cooler American cousin.
He is. Mike Leonard, once upon a time, wrote into this very podcast.
He did?
Mike from Saskatchewan. There's a deep cut, ladies and gentlemen. That was before we renamed this podcast to Sure Look, Sure Listen. But that's not the only one, Michael. There's another one, and this is the one that kind of keeps me up at night, Michael. It's called The Bone Turner's Tale.
Oh, go on.
Yeah. So the author of this one is unknown, but it's based on the idea of the Canterbury Tales, as if this was one of the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, Michael. You might know, the Middle English poet.
I've heard of him, yeah. Couldn't really speak English very well.
No, he's got that weird gobbledygook Middle English stuff in his gob. But if you don't know what the Canterbury Tales is, it's a series of tales from different people within a medieval troupe, and each tale tells a story from their perspective. They're quite famous books, Michael, considered to be one of the essential, if you will, English texts for the development of the form of writing an old novel.
Of doing a novel. It's like the first novel in English.
But each of them, Michael, features a tale from the perspective of a social class, if you will, at that time in medieval society. A Knigget, for example. The Knight's Tale, the Miller's Tale, the Reeve's Tale, the Cook's Tale, the Man of Law's Tale, the Wife of Bath's Tale, the Friar's Tale, the Summoner's Tale. And some of them are romantic, some of them are a bit risque. It's like carry on knighting. So yeah, exactly. You'd be rubbing your nipples while you were reading them back in the day by the campfire.
Oh, fuck, the camera's on.
And then, Michael, some of them would be bawdy, some of them would be comedic, some of them would be satire of social classes at the time. But this, Michael, the Bone Turner's Tale, is set up as almost a lost copy of one of the perspectives within the Canterbury Tales. Yeah. And very often, Michael, the books from Jürgen Leitner's library are stories that we know, stories that we've encountered in real life, but they're like missing fragments from things that we've read before.
Here's what
so
really happened and was worse.
Yeah, and was worse. Exactly. So it's a bit like that. But the Bone Turner's Tale is very unusual, Michael, in that when people read it, it features a man who seems to be able to put his own hands in and out of people's bodies without causing them harm, but he can remove things from the body, which is just gross and horrible, Michael. Grobbly, if you will. But one of the things on page 16 of the Bone Turner's tale is that while the rest of the party in the Canterbury Tales are asleep, the Bone Turner wakes up and sneaks over to the miller, for example. The direct quote is, "And from his rib a flute to play that merry tune of Marrow took." So he literally slips a rib from out of the miller and plays a tune. But naturally, Michael, that kills him, because you can't be doing that. You can't just be forcibly removing things from people.
Very sore.
But very interestingly, Michael, in this case, the books seem to seek out the ideal reader. And this is something I really like about them. So the books are exceptionally harmful to some people. So, for example, in the case of Ex Altiora, they fall from a great height and they die, or they find themselves transported into the sky and they freeze to death. It's something to do with heights, as you might expect from the name of the book, Michael. In the Bone Turner's Tale, it causes people to bleed and gives them a very strange ability to warp their own body. So, you could grab your chest and pull it apart to make yourself broader, or you could stretch your femurs to make yourself taller, if that makes sense. Or, in some of the gross cases, Michael, you could take a bone or a limb from someone else's body and fuse it to your skeleton and use it as an appendage. Gross and horrible stuff. But usually, it kills the user after a certain amount of time, until it finds its ideal reader. And that could be someone that you encounter in the thing. And then they become the Bone Turner of the tale. So they're kind of a master of other people's bones and anatomy. It's gross and grobbly stuff, Michael. Gross and grobbly stuff.
Fucking lash it in the crack of doom, Ben.
Yeah, they make for phenomenal reading or listening, as the case may be, Michael, because, as I said, they are part of a podcast. But one of my favorites of these, Michael, and I hinted at it in the intro to this, is called A Guest for Mr. Spider. And this is... Spiders are one of the big entities, Michael, of
Very
this.
small.
Yes, but in this, Michael, they're one of the things that come up again and again. One of the great themes of the Magnus Archives. But A Guest for Mr. Spiders, Michael, is awful. And it's a children's book that can be found and read, Michael. And in that children's book, it features a very simple illustration of a spider standing in a room with two doors. And it has this amazing kind of child book-like way of doing it. So, for example, knock knock, who is it, Mr. Spider? It's Mr. Bluebottle, and he's brought you a cake. Mr. Spider doesn't like it. And then it cuts away to the next page, Michael, and there's a bloody smear over one side of the page, and Mr. Spider has gotten a little bit larger, and Mr. Bluebottle is nowhere to be seen, but there's a piece of cake that he brought sitting on the table. And that goes on like that.
Don't have blood, though.
No, they don't, Michael. But in this, they do, Michael, you see, because it's supposed to cause fear in other people.
I see.
And what happens is, Michael, that as this goes on, Mr. Spider obviously has more guests for dinner, Michael. And in that way, he doesn't have the guests over for tea. He has them for tea. Full stop. But then, Michael, it's heard, and as the book goes on, the spider slowly turns towards you. And the final part of this, and yes, you, the reader, turns to them. And finally it says, Mr. Spider would like another guest for dinner. And suddenly the door that you saw in this on the one side, and it says underneath it, it is polite to knock, and it prompts the child to knock. And the heavy implication, Michael, of it is that Mr. Spider's going to eat you next if you finish the book.
Oh no, don't never finish a book. That's what I keep saying.
Never finish a book. That's what he keeps saying. But all of these were kept in the library of Jürgen Leitner, Michael. A man with more hubris than bloody... What's his name? Icarus himself. There we go. Got it.
Yeah.
And it's fabulous. I strongly recommend that you go and give it a listen, lads. SCPs. Or not SCPs. Bloody... the Magnus Archives. Fabulous
Magnus
stuff.
Archive.
But the cursed books of Jürgen Leitner are easily some of my favourite cursed objects lately, Michael.
Because they pop out and get you. Benjamin,
Yeah.
there's a kind of thing with cursed objects, isn't there? Where it tends to be something a little bit old-fashioned. You don't get like a cursed PS5 controller.
No.
You don't get a cursed Fitbit.
Yeah.
But in 25 years, someone's going to make a film about a cursed Fitbit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once a piece of media or a piece of technology or a piece of cultural ephemera, once it becomes uncommon to see it around still, that's when it can be cursed. That's why the cursed videotape is one of my favourite genres of cursed thingamajiggies.
Oh, yes.
And there are plenty of cursed videotapes.
Oh, there's so many, Michael.
Basically, as soon as videotapes stopped being the most common, or even as they just were starting to make their way out, urban legends started spreading about them. Because there's something about videotapes being the first publicly, cheaply available mass media video storage devices. That it was the first time that people could share video, basically. That the general public could share video. And that's a kind of crazy thing to think about in the era that we live in of YouTube, where I could record a literal film on my phone and text it to you.
If you wanted to, yeah.
If I wanted to, I'm not going to. We've kind of matured past that point now.
Yeah, we kind of understand that supporting people and their efforts at art are probably better.
Yeah.
Probably.
So, what was I saying? Yes, cursed videotapes. The idea that someone might give you, or you might find a videotape and plug it into your video player and find something weird was culturally very strong. And I mean, you can't ignore that the history of it and the kind of feeling, that feeling of mystery of what's on this blank video cassette is tied in with the first time ever pornography was available mass market, and that there were always rumours of snuff films and snuff videotapes and video nasties. And if someone gave you a blank videotape and you were brave enough to put it into a VHS player and press play, you never knew what you were going to get. Now, most likely, you were going to get 3 episodes of The Next Generation recorded off Sky One.
Yeah, that's probably it, yeah.
That's probably it. But there was the slightest of chances that you might get a porno. Or there was the even smaller chance that you might watch some sort of 30 seconds of cursed footage.
Oh, you shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done that.
No. Because you know what's going to happen now? You're fucked.
The scientific term, you're bollocks.
You're absolutely bollocks. Because in 7 days, bloody Samara is going to come up out of that well and she's got to fuck you up.
She's going to get you. She's going to get you.
She's going to get you. So, the cursed... I'm, of course, talking specifically about the cursed videotape in the film The Ring, or the Japanese film Ringu.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
And its American remake. I prefer the American remake, Ben. You may roast me over an open fire all you want, but I think it's a better film. I think they were able to take the very good concept and atmosphere of it and apply a bit more of a better plot and a more coherent story. Which,
Michael, you're going to have the weeaboos after us. They're going to get us.
The fucking weeaboos, Benjamin. They're going to come after us.
Get out of
They're going to start mailing me videotapes.
Oh, just loads of blank videotapes, or worse.
Just, I'm not watching any of them.
Stuff with video on them.
It's funny because nowadays, if someone handed you a blank USB, for example, and said, plug that into your computer and press play, you'd be like,
fucking chance.
No, thank you, Mr. E-Scammer. I think I won't. But
I'm all right, thank you, sir.
You can't infect a VHS player with evil. You can just infect your victims. But the the evil cassette in the ring has a lot of the cursed object thing. So the girl doesn't possess the tape.
Okay.
The tape isn't malicious.
Mm-hmm.
But the tape is definitely supernatural.
It's not malicious, but it's weird.
It's if you try and get rid of it, it comes back. That's one of the worst things about it.
Yeah.
Whether it comes back because you throw it in the bin and then your 6-year-old takes it out of the bin and watches it, or there's some other mechanism of evil, but it will find its way back and be seen by more people.
Yeah.
But don't watch the bloody thing. This was one of the only films that ever genuinely scared me as a young adult.
That's because you were always swapping videotapes with your mates.
It was, yeah. When you watched it, you was like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
I wouldn't even have the capacity to play that.
Yeah, but you were always watching Farscape episodes 6 through 9 of season 2 from Sky, complete with advertisements from L'Oreal and what's another 90s thing? Quick.
Smoking,
yeah, loads of cigarettes on the telly. The peak really of Irish advertising when we used to get anime Smithix ads and the Grim Reaper advertising butter. Classic. For those of you that don't know, ladies and gentlemen, go look up the heyday of 90s Irish television advertising. Once upon a time, ladies and gentlemen, we did things right. Not anymore. Now we're a capitalist hellscape. But once upon a time.
Toy Show was great, though.
The Toy Show was great. What a great bunch of lads.
Great
bunch of lads. I wonder what they have us on.
On the Toy Show to talk about cursed objects. Just bring on a lot of cursed toys.
That'd be great.
And Patrick Keelty, this one is possessed by the spirit of a pedophile.
Oh, you wouldn't want to touch that, would you? No, Patrick. You wouldn't.
You wouldn't want to bring that on the Toy Show, would you? It looks like a very excited cursed object.
It's okay. We've got it in a Tupperware, Patrick. It's fine.
Ed Warren banged it in a Tupperware for us. He promises it's evil spirit tight. He's also a prick, though, Patrick, so I don't know if we believe him.
So I probably shouldn't have come on at all.
Yeah. Regretting this, Patrick, to be honest.
I can see from the sweat dripping down your brow, you are too. Yeah. Thanks, Patrick. See you later.
We'll head off. We'll take our cursed object and we'll just head off.
Oh, very good. Very good. Very good.
More cursed objects, Ben.
More cursed objects, if you'd like.
Yeah, have you lost steam? Have you run out of steam?
We've got our... sometimes we just reach a satisfying end of a bit, and sometimes I just like to catch my breath before I launch into the next one, Michael. Just,
Oh, yeah. Good podcasting.
Yeah, great stuff. Dead air, Michael. That's the secret to a successful podcast.
Secret.
Dead air. Yeah. Sir, Michael, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we've seen, but one of my first introductions that I remember all the way back in 2006, Michael, when I was 15 years old, was the little known sci-fi show. I think it's mostly been forgotten now, Michael, but it was called The Lost Room.
Never heard of it. No.
Elle Fanning was in it, of all people, Michael. Her of
the Spanish actress, The Fanning.
Yes. Yes, the Spanish actress, The Fanning. She was in there. And basically, it was a very simple thing, Michael. Peter Krause was a detective.
Go on.
He was Detective Joe Miller, which is the most American of American detective names. And, of course, he had a daughter, Michael. And she was Anna Miller, right?
All right.
And what happened was his daughter disappeared in a motel room that he was involved in, Michael. And he was convinced that this motel room was cursed. And everyone else said, no, you're just mental and you lost your daughter. You're just a very unwell man. And we think you murdered her.
Oh, no.
But that's not what happened at all. It actually was a supernatural going on, Michael. And The Lost Room was featured around a very important thing, which was a 1960s motel room, Michael, along Route 66. And in that motel room, Michael, a strange event took place. That bent time and space. The event took place in 1961, and in that motel room, all of the objects within it became cursed. And made their way out in the world, right? So the objects is what they're called within the show. They're just referred to that by the seekers of them, I suppose. And they were about 100 everyday items, completely normal things, Michael, that became indestructible once they were outside the room. However, very destructible if someone placed them back inside the cursed motel room, the lost room, if you will.
Oh.
Yeah. So there was lots of different things. So
you want to get them back in there then?
It depends on what you want to do with them, Michael. So as with any great kind of bit of fiction, what will happen is if you release these objects out and those their effects kind of filter out into the world, you'll have obviously schisms of belief, Michael. You'll have some people that believe that these objects are sent by God and are going to help humanity. And you've got other people who are scientists and go, no, it's just a weird phenomena, an event. They don't actually have any significant moral meaning to them at all. But we should gather them up and study them to see if we can turn them into weapons for the US government. And then you might have another group of people who are saying, oh, these are evil objects and we should harness their power because Satan is coming to Earth and we should use that. And one of my favourite things about this, Michael, is we never actually find out what they are. We just know that they're cursed objects that exist in the world. There's never any great mystery unveiled. That's one of my favourite things, Michael. But a group of different people spring up around this. There's the collectors, the original group of object seekers that looked for all these things. So Room 9, sorry, I should explain, Michael, that Room 9 is the strange event that happened in 1961. That's where it happened. And they collect these objects to keep them safe, and they try and put them back in the room so that they can't affect the real world. So they're called the collectors. Grand bunch of lads, right?
And
perfectly
but we
normal.
never find out what the objects do.
Oh no, we do find out what the objects do. We don't find out why they're cursed. We don't find out that, there was a mystical group and they put curses on them intentionally. It doesn't ruin it in that way. It's just a bizarre event that created these objects. And that's kind of why I liked it. But then you have the Legion, Michael, and this is a group that's dedicated to collecting the objects and stopping them from causing more harm. They're kind of religious zealots, if you will. And then, Michael, there is the Order of Reunification. That's another group of religious zealots, and they believe that if you collect all the objects, you'll be able to talk to God.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a classic bit of that, Michael. But the objects themselves can do any number of things. It's great stuff. So one of them is the key, and that's what Joe Miller, the detective, finds that he has. And what happens is if you use the key in any hinged or pinned lock, right, in a door,
yes,
it will bring you back to Room 9 in the motel.
Oh, very clever. Kind of like lock and key.
Lock and key, exactly. And then, Michael, if you open the door in the motel and think of where you want to go, it will let you out in that door in the real world.
Oh, kind of like lock and key. Isn't Joe Miller the name of the detective in The Expanse?
Probably. I don't know. Oh, you've stumped me now. I hate it when you throw me a pop culture curveball, Michael, and I haven't prepared for it.
I think it definitely is. Josephus Miller was
Josephus Miller. It's not the same, Michael. It's not the same. It's not the same at all. Not the same at all, Michael. Not even similar. No, they are very similar, and you've ruined it for me now, Michael. You've ruined it for me. But what happens is, Michael, there's other objects like the comb from the room, which stops time for 10 seconds when you run it through your hair. And the bearer of the comb can move through time, obviously, and everyone else gets frozen for 10 seconds.
What do you mean, obviously?
Obviously. Well, I mean, would be very good stopping time. No one would know if it stopped time for everybody for 10 seconds, would they?
How would I use it?
Well, you for your beard.
Oh, would it work on beards?
Yeah, I'm sure it would, yeah. I never saw it, so I don't know.
All right.
I can't remember if beards were involved. But another one, Michael, is a glass eye that was on a table. And that can heal people, Michael. But also, people then realize that when you start combining objects, you can create new things. So the glass eye can heal or destroy living things, and it depends on what the bearer wants to do. But for example, one of the awful things that I remember, and spoilers for a series that came out in 2006, obviously one of the awful things that happens is everyone's always trying to steal your stuff, Michael, because they find out that you have the object and they want to take it. One guy carves his own eye out and puts the glass eye in, so that he always has it on him. Grim.
Very clever.
Grim.
Very clever. Very clever.
Yeah, so he always has it on him, and people don't realise maybe that one of his eyes is actually a glass eye until they look at him too close, and then it's too late, Michael, because he can decide to destroy you. And that's what it happens. But I remember this being a fabulous show, Michael, and it was one of the great kind of Object of the Week series, as opposed to a Case of the Week series. And like some of them were very harmful, like the glass eye, and then other things like the scissors, right? There was a pair of scissors, and they could rotate any object you decided on, such as a person or, a building or something like that. They could rotate it in 3D space. So
cool.
But that was a bizarre one because it couldn't move the building. It wasn't like a sim builder where you like pick and drop, but you could rotate an entire building, for example. Or if you went into a room, they could rotate the room so you couldn't leave again. So the door just led into solid bedrock or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Unless you had the magic key.
Unless you had the magic key, and then you could get out of whatever you wanted. So the key,
Benjamin.
obviously, Michael, yes.
Ask the listeners what their favourite objects were.
Ladies and gentlemen, what are your favourite cursed objects? What cursed objects would you carve your own eyeball out for and shove something in? Let us know in a few different places. You can find us all over the gaff at all the links down below in the description. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. You can leave a comment for us if you listen to us on Spotify. You can bloody drop us a comment down at the bottom of this YouTube video right down there. Go on, do it now. Do it now. Do it now. We'll wait. Or, ladies and gentlemen, you might have heard at the start of this episode that Mick has lots of friends who listen to the podcast and then say it was in my top 10, blah, 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 blah.
No, number one.
Friends with Mick. Because I'm friends with Mick. Or, if you want to make me happy, because I don't have any friends, ladies and gentlemen, you can just give us a review wherever you listen. It might be on Spotify. It might be on Apple Podcasts. If you've made it this far, you've probably enjoyed the episode. Go on. Go give us a review wherever you listen. Go on.
Give us a bloody review. Benjamin.
Yes.
Speaking of cursed stuff, one of my favorite horror things over the last few years, and very similarly to The Ring, which we just talked about, I thoroughly enjoyed the film Smile a couple of years ago. When was it? 2020?
Creepy. 2020.
Very creepy and very unpleasant. And then I was quite excited to see. Everyone's got a big creepy smile. They're like this.
No good.
And they're sending people out and doing social medias and stuff and doing a big creepy smile. And I was quite excited to see Smile too. But like so many horror films, it snuck past me in the cinematorium because no one ever wants to go see horror films with me, Ben. Because
we're all scared, Michael.
Yeah.
We're all scared.
Everyone I know is a coward. So the good news is it's out on streaming. And I finally got to see it.
So you can subject your poor lady wife to it instead. She can't get away from you.
No, she didn't watch it. I watched it on my own. I watched it on my own and I was very frightened.
Are you sure, Michael, that some people tagged us as their number one podcast? Do you have friends? Come on.
Absolutely certain. Ben, someone on the Discord, Ben, did it as well.
I've met some of your friends. Yeah, no, I've met some of your friends. I've actually met some of your friends.
Didn't someone on the Discord, wasn't it MG on the Discord who did it as well? And
couldn't tell you,
anyway, doesn't matter.
Well, we have a Discord, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot to mention that in all my plugs. Go on and join it down there. And I will forget you too when it comes time to give you your flowers.
You will. You forget that you posted that we were your number one listen for the year. Ben, shut up for a second, because I watched Smile too. I'm not going to get into spoilers, but I really liked Smile. I really liked the first one. I liked the conceit of it. I liked the conceit of what it turns out to be. When I saw the trailer for this, when we all saw the trailer for this, we thought it looked cool. It looked like a horror film. Smile meets Lady Gaga with Naomi Scott, her from out 2017's Saban's Power Rangers, playing
classic.
A Lady Gaga-esque character. Ben, we should do an exhumed on 2017's Power Rangers.
That'll be the final episode of this podcast ever, because it started with Power Rangers and it'll finish with Power Rangers.
Great idea. What was I saying? So yes, it looked like she played a Lady Gaga-esque pop star who, takes on the curse of the smile.
I shouldn't do that.
No, well, you don't really have a choice. It's something that happens to you. And that is, broadly speaking, the story and the plot of this. And it's not very complex. It's, in the first one, it was Kevin Bacon's daughter, and she was a normal woman having a mental breakdown. And in this, she's a pop star having a mental breakdown.
And a mentee bee.
A mentee bee. And that's what the Smile films are, as far as I can tell. They're a dramatization of a dissociative mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And, transferring the fear of that happening to you across to, but what if it was a demon, I guess.
Yeah, but what if it was actually contagious? What if cyberbullying actually made you go mad?
Yeah, exactly. But what the real horror of them isn't the monster or the curse. It is the fear of not knowing what's real and who's real and and the conversation that you're having, are they really happening? That gradual breakdown in sanity. But I thought this was really, really good. It's one of the better sequels. It entirely rests on the shoulders of Naomi Scott, who does a fabulous job. I hope you like looking at Naomi Scott's face, because 90% of the shots of this movie are just straight camera on, eye contact shots with Naomi Scott's face.
It's probably why you choose someone
a freak out
like Naomi Scott, though. She's,
Yeah. But she plays a not much deeper and more complex character, but she's not a bubblegum pop princess. She's a very damaged character, which ties in with the whole thing of it being a semi-realistic representation of, I suppose, the pop culture version of having a schizophrenic breakdown.
Yeah, or a bit of PTSD.
It's a lot more than a bit of PTSD.
Oh, it's a good stack of PTSD.
Oh,
is it?
Oh, it's awful stuff going on. Anyway, I thought it was very good, and I strongly recommend it. Did you see anything?
Do you know who agrees with you, Michael?
The listeners?
Everybody, because the third one has been greenlit. It's going ahead.
Hooray!
Hooray. So everyone agrees with you, Michael. Michael, I saw a few different things this week, but probably top of the list for any of our listeners was Creature Commandos, the debut voyage within James Gunn's DC EU.
Yeah, great idea. Launch your entire new universe with an obscure, niche, C-string animated show.
Sure, it worked for him with the Suicide Squad, so why not just do it again? But this time it's animated. Yeah, sure. Look, Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad, Michael, not David Ayer's Suicide Squad.
No,
the Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad was the first thing I saw after COVID in the cinema, and me and my good lady friend Michael left going, that was fucking brilliant. And then we watched it again, and we were like, oh, it's not as good, but it was a great re-emergence into the cinema. And then, Michael,
great time.
What was the hit of superhero shows for me the year it came out was Peacemaker. What a fabulous show. Great stuff altogether.
But not in the DCEU.
Not in the DC. Well, no, it is. This is the question we're all asking, Michael, isn't it? It's like how much of this is all interconnected? How much of it actually works? But anyway, enough of that, Michael. Enough of that.
Why? What's going on?
There's a little bit of continuity in this, because at the end of Peacemaker, and bloody spoilers for a show that came out 2 years ago now, so just don't get annoyed at me. At the end of Peacemaker, it's strongly hinted at that Amanda Waller's daughter, who is on the handler team for Peacemaker, it's heavily hinted at that she exposes Amanda Waller's Project X and the Suicide Squad. And that's also played upon in this, Michael, because also tragically in the Suicide Squad film, Rick Flag Jr. perishes at the hands of Peacemaker.
Is it tragic, though?
Well, it is. No, it definitely is. It's quite sad.
No,
it's quite sad.
Joel Kinnaman, great lad. But anyway, in this, Michael, Rick Flag Sr. takes over. And good.
He's no senior now. Everybody's favourite fella who pops up and stuff is doing it. Frank Grillo. He's the voice of this.
Is he?
And Amanda Waller drafts him in as an American hero. I don't think Amanda Waller has told him how his son dies. She just explains that he was KIA, killed in action. So I think there's probably a little bit of tension brewing there for later in the episodes, Michael.
Oh, how exciting.
There. But he's been put in charge of Project M because it turns out, as a result of her daughter blowing the whistle, as it were. Oh, I've frozen, have I?
No, you're grand.
No, I'm back now. As a result of her daughter blowing the whistle, Michael, she's not allowed to use humans in the Weapon X program anymore. Not the Weapon X, the Project X.
Have been allowed. Yeah, shouldn't have been allowed anyway.
Shouldn't have been allowed anyway, but...
Bit of a moral grey area.
Classic American government. It's grand so long as nobody finds out about it, but if you find out about it, I'm not fucking having anything to do with you. So now she's allowed to use non-human combatants, and she puts together Project M, or the Creature Commandos, Michael.
Because the Monster Squad was taken. So the Creature Commandos have a very long history within the comics, Michael. They were kind of
they appeared for the first time in Weird War Tales in 1980, Michael, from DC Comics. And they are a historical fiction team of Nazi fighting monsters, essentially, from World War II. And the original team was where a lieutenant in the US Army, a guy called Matthew Shreve, he was the Rick Flag of it all. And he was placed in charge of Warren Griffith, who is a werewolf, Sergeant Vincent Velcro, a vampire.
Oh, yeah.
Elliot Lucky Taylor, he was a Frankenstein-esque monster, cobbled together man. And Dr. Myrna Rhodes, who was a Gorgon.
Oh, she got snakehead.
She got bloody freezy eyes and a snake head and all that. Now, they're actually quite important because that kicks off a wave of monster-adjacent Z-list characters that then feature again and again and again and again within the DC universe. And these kinds of B-list, wacky, cobbled-together characters would be inspirations for the like of the Doom Patrol reinvention by Wee Granty M.
From Wee Scotland, yep.
Yeah, from Scotland, and he would go on to do that. Now, this team is very different, Michael. It's a whole other bunch of lads involved, but it's an enjoyable little romp, I have to say. It's pretty good. So in this, they have Dr. Phosphorus, who is a Batman villain.
And I thought a human.
And a human, but he's no longer classed as human. He's changed. So it's classic Amanda Waller stuff, where Rick Flag is like, wasn't he a human in the beginning? Is like, could you really call that thing human anymore, Captain? And it's like, good stuff, Amanda, you treacherous wench. Yeah, and so that's still going on, but yeah. So he's there. He's played by your friend and ours, Alan Tudyk.
Oh, good old Alan Tudyk.
Voicing
He's not
him.
making animal sounds.
Great stuff from him. G.I. Robot is there. He's a Nazi-killing robot from World War II. And he's very enjoyably voiced by Nepo baby Sean Gunn, brother of James Gunn.
I'm just going to double check with you there. Do you mean a robot who kills Nazis, or are you saying he's a Nazi-killing robot? As in
he's
a
robot who kills Nazis, but played to great comedic effect, because anytime someone raises their tone at another character, G.I. Robot gets very excited and says, "This is a Nazi, I can kill them." And it turns out that he is programmed for pure bloodlust against Nazis, which is very enjoyable. Played for many comedic bits. Nina Mazursky, Michael, is a bit of a Shape of Water creature from the Black Lagoon style character, Michael.
And she got webbed hands.
She's voiced... she's got webbed hands, she's got gills, she has to wear a little water bowl on her head, a little respirator on top of the old skull when she's outside of the water. Yeah, exactly. And she's voiced by Zoe Chow, Michael. And then we come to my favourite character of the whole thing, Michael, who is Indria Varma, who voices the Bride of Frankenstein. Indra Varma is the famous British actress, Michael. And she plays the Bride of Frankenstein. And the Bride of Frankenstein is exactly what you would imagine from the B-movie Bride of Frankenstein, but reimagined for the DC universe. And she's a big ass-kicking woman in this. And she is, by and far, Michael, the most interesting character of this entire reboot. And
because she's a muscle mommy.
Because she's a muscle mommy, first of all. Amen.
Yeah.
And then, second of all, Michael, because Frankenstein, who's a character in DC Comics, he's a sword-wielding badass in this, Michael. He's voiced by David Harbour in this, Michael.
Oh, he's a Scottish Frankenstein, is he?
No, David Harbour, not David Tennant. You son of a gun.
No, that was my mistake. I actually thought that I got them mixed up. That wasn't a bit. I got them mixed up.
David Harbour does a great kind of Latverian Doctor Doom accent for the whole thing, whereas Indria Varma gets to be an upper class British woman who sounds a bit like Kate Beckinsale at all times.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. All right, yeah, I understand why this is your favorite character, Ben.
This is pretty interesting.
Pressing a lot of the buttons
because it retells that story, and it turns out there's a load of riding in this, Michael. So if you're into cartoon shenanigans in the bedroom, you'd probably enjoy this, because at one point, I was watching this in the family home, Michael, because I didn't realise I was in for this. And at one point, my mother stuck her head in the door and goes, "What in God's name are you watching?" And I went,
Benjamin, we thought we were done with this when you were 16. We still call that night Sticky Sunday.
Oh, brutal stuff. Oh no, Michael. Oh,
remember
no.
Sticky Sunday, they say in your house.
Grim.
It comes up every Christmas. Your family get a few drinks in them and say, remember Sticky Sunday? And you go, oh no. Oh, Dad, not again.
But their plotline, Michael, is essentially Frankenstein is the stalker of the Bride of Frankenstein. She's his reluctant bride. And we get a phenomenal montage in episode 2 of them basically scrapping across time. And it's great stuff. But the action overall is very good, Michael. It's pure James Gunn. It's snappy dialogue, unlikely family, enemies become friends, that kind of thing. It's Guardians of the Galaxy. It's the Suicide Squad. It's Peacemaker. It's the same plot every time. Every single time. Oh, we've all been thrust together. But in the words of James Gunn, if it ain't broke and it breaks the box office, don't fix it.
Fix it. Rock music will bring them together. Benjamin, very quickly, you've got 3.5 minutes to tell us about Black Doves.
Oh, Michael, what if John Wick met the Bourne Identity? What if that happened and we made it British and sexy? Yeah. So, in the wake of John Wick, Michael, everyone's assassins. And that's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what's happening here. But it's got bloody Keira Knightley in it. Keira Knightley is a sexy lady assassin. Yeah, that's that. There's a lot of that. And Ben Winshaw, Paddington, is in it. And he's an assassin. Yeah. So Ben Winshaw's in it.
Live action or animated?
It's live action. It's fully live action. Ben Winshaw's in it. Keira Knightley's in it. Keira Knightley's a spy. Ben Winshaw's an assassin. And it's basically about a woman who finds herself entangled in a messy political situation as the result of an affair she was having. And it tracks that, and basically Ben Winshaw's brought back from Rome. He was done with London. He had to leave London under murky circumstances, but he's been dragged back in. And it's a great old time, Michael. It's very slick, very fun. There's some very enjoyable scenes. There's an Irish assassin in it. That's a bit of crack. She's basically just a young one from Dublin, and she's a psychopath. And it's great stuff. It's great stuff to see on the screen. What do you mean? Yeah, pretty much, yeah. What do you mean? Yeah, get away from me.
She's a fella.
Yeah, but anyway, there's a bit of that. That's a nice niche Dublin TikTok doing the rounds here, ladies and gentlemen.
She's a fella, get away from her.
But I've only watched 2 episodes now, in all fairness, but it's quite slick. It's quite well put together. It's got that great abandonment of physics where it's like, oh, this is all very slick, but after 2 of those hits, you'd be on the fucking ground. Like, Keira Knightley throat punches like 3 different people in it, and they keep getting up, and I'm like, hang on, she absolutely compounded your windpipe there, mate. Like, I watched it happen.
Keira Knightley's very slight, Benjamin. That
she
might
does it
actually
with
be...
She does it with a book at one point, Michael. Like, I was just there going, lad, you're not getting up. She takes, like, the Gideon Bible and smashes it across someone's windpipe.
I don't know if Keira Knightley could hit me hard enough that I wouldn't get back up, Ben.
Get out of here with your misogyny. Get out of here with your misogyny. Get out of here, right? Look, it's a fun little show. It could turn terrible, but it's pretty enjoyable. It's very slick. It's well paced. It's well written. I believe some of the characters. The nice thing about it is there's no queen and country horseshit, Michael. All the spy operations in this are capitalist enterprises that are into information brokering and stuff like that. So it's a bit more believable instead of, God damn it, I'll do it for the flag.
Does the CEO get killed at the start, Ben?
It's not a CEO, but there's a bit of that going on. The backdrop is that there's some overarching plot where a Chinese ambassador has been offed in an unsavory fashion, and it threatens to cause an international incident and possibly World War III. There's loads of interesting stuff happening, Michael. It's quite enjoyable. Ben Winshaw is the best part of it, and Keira Knightley and Ben Winshaw's chemistry and interaction throughout is fab. It's a bit of crack to watch.
Benjamin, we've got 30 seconds to talk about The Gorge coming from Apple. Bloody, what's his name again? Drum that faster, boy.
Millie Tells, or Miles
Teller. He's on one side of the gorge. Anya Taylor-Joy's on the other side of the gorge, Benjamin. They're not allowed to communicate with each other, so they write each other messages and kind of start falling in love. But don't worry, fuck all that. There's demons and stuff.
In the gorge.
In the gorge. This is another one from the world of Everyone's Assassins, and I thought that's what this was going to be. I thought this was just another Everyone's Assassins.
But then they put demons in it, and I was like, why? What'd you do that for?
You've got two assassins and demons in the middle. What I hate about this trailer, though, is they spoil it for us that he makes an attempt to cross the gorge, falls in, and she goes down to get him. Like, surely
that's the whole movie.
The twist. That's the whole movie. They've told us the movie. They so couldn't resist just showing us the movie fucking movie. Yeah. You know what vibe this gave me? This gave me the vibe of Matt Damon in The Great Wall.
Matt Damon. Oh, The Great Wall. Oh, that ill-fated... Matt Damon is an archer, and he teaches the Chinese a thing or two about war, I tell you.
Grand bunch of lads, the Chinese. They're keeping demons out the whole time.
Great bunch of lads. That's what they've been doing. None of those... What do you mean? Human rights violations. Get out of here.
No, none of those.
The only
demons.
rights... Yeah, the only rights we're violating are demons.
Demons. There's loads of demons.
It just so happens that the opposing political party full of demons.
Full of demons.
I think Vladimir
There's someone
Putin is a
knocking
fan
on my
of
door.
pushing demons off balconies, isn't he? And it's like, oh, he slipped and fell off the top room of that hotel. Terrible.
Fell off
terrible stuff.
Demons. Yep.
Demon though, lucky. Anyway, that's us, ladies. That's the last episode you'll ever hear from us, ladies and gentlemen, because we are actually going to get a few knocks on the door, I suppose. Come here to me, Michael. Michael, what are we doing next week?
What's next week? I don't know.
Are we going to do an Exhumed to wrap us out for the year?
Is it that time already? Okay, why not?
Well, we're finishing up next week. Next week's our final episode for 2024, ladies and gentlemen.
Are we not doing the Mickeys then?
Will we do the Mickeys? Do you want to do the Mickeys? Do you want to do a good old classic conceit? Right, ladies and gentlemen, in that case, we want to know, what was your top bloody film of the year? What was your top bloody TV show of the year? What really sauced your buns when it came to comic books? What really lit a fire under your arse when it came to reading a book? Just generally, not one with pictures in it, the kind I don't like. And ladies and gentlemen, who was the good egg of the year? Who do you think's a real gem? And who do you think is the worst egg of the year? Probably Israel again, but, we'll see.
Was it Israel last year?
See. Yeah, I think it was, wasn't it?
Was it?
They just started all this shite at this time last year.
Was it the end of... Oh, yeah, of course it was.
Yeah, we gave them a good old bashing.
Wow.
We've pretty much run the gauntlet on the old... what's his name? What's that dickhead?
Content.
Yeah. So, anyway, it's probably them again, ladies and gentlemen, because they've really not let up, the pricks. Anyway, that's it from us, ladies and gentlemen. As I said before, you can, if you've made it this far, take a look down there in the description. You'll find a link to the Discord where you can have a chat with us directly. You'll find links to our other podcast, Collecting Issues, where we just took a look at Friday from Image Comics, books 1, 2, and 3. That's down below there in the description as well. You can also find the links to all of our socials. You can also find, ladies and gentlemen, pretty much anything you'd want to keep in touch with a podcast. Go and follow us. Give us a review. Do all the nice things. Please, it's nearly Christmas. Yeah. That's it from us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you next week.